Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Erudition Network, the Erudition Network Interactive Black History and Knowledge Session. It is me, your host for this hour, Eddie Phillips. I am here. We had a little bit of a StreamYard connection issue today, so I apologize for a little bit tardy today, but we are here. I'm going to give a couple of moments for people to come in. Hey, share if you're coming in and you don't see people here. Please share. Get folks to get online, come in and have this discussion today. I will give about a good couple of minutes, 5 or 6 minutes for that. If excuse me, if due to the fact that we're a little bit late today, you cannot stay with the entire live session, I understand. But for the time that you can give us, please be here and let's interact together and let's grow. If you are new to this show, you know that you don't know that this is a fully hour interactive Black history experience. I try to get on here every Thursday and we go over history that is not generally covered. We try to open the floor to questions and to your thoughts and concerns and issues that may affect you today, that have a historical background, touch on some knowledge and some understanding, things that we really need to wrap our minds around. And so we try to do that every Thursday. I will tell you, there are not too many shows that are like this, that have a person on talking about history, public historian talking about history for an hour, opening the floor to your questions. There are a lot of things that are online, but they are not always fact-based. So we try very hard here on Erudition to give you factual history and to cover things in a venerated way, so that we're not just telling you anything and throwing anything out there for you to accept. So this is not like a TikTok false or pseudo history program. We actually talk about history on this program, and we do our best to validate and to fact check and to source our history. One of the things that in creating this program was to make sure that all of our history was venerated and it was validated and it was fact-based, and there was we knew what we were talking about and what we were going into. So I want you to feel free to ask questions, knowing that if I don't know, we're going to go and try to find the answer together. If I do know, I'm going to give you the places where it won't just be my opinion, the places where you can go to grow your knowledge. This is not a keeping a secret network either. We want you to grow your knowledge and understanding, as the picture on my wall says right in the back. Couldn't get that out for some reason. Grow your knowledge and your understanding. That is a very important thing, and something that is a tenet of the Erudition Network, and something that I truly believe that we need to do. All right. If you're with us, please feel free to jump in the chat. And let us know you're here. Let us know you're watching, and so we can better address you and your questions. But as I said a moment ago, if you're with us, share, share, share. Get people within your group to of influence to join us tonight. The more people we have on the program, it is always better, and it will always be more informative if we are all here discussing our history. So let us know that you're watching, and we'll go forth. I've given a couple of moments for people to get on and to know that we're on tonight and join us for the whatever time that you have. Whatever time that you have is appreciated here in the live interactive. If you can't comment on Facebook, please feel free to join us on Erudition Network's YouTube page. You should be able to leave your comments without any problem on YouTube. We are streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook, on several different platforms. So you will be able to definitely connect with us. So please feel free to join us on there. I'm going to try to put that link for our YouTube page in the chat here so that you have it and you can people can see it and grow from it or whatever. All right. What are we going to talk about tonight? I have some things I do want to talk about, but always when we start this program, because it is interactive and I try very hard to keep it interactive. One of the things that I always open the floor for are your questions. If you have questions, Black history, knowledge questions, something that is bothering you, something that you never really got a good understanding about in history or whatever, hey, I want you to feel free to drop that right here within the chat. And we will definitely venture to answer those questions. Do not be afraid to ask any of the questions that you have. There are, I will say it, we've heard this most of us our entire lives, but this is truthful. There are no stupid questions. Ask your questions. And I promise you, we will do our best to answer those questions. So whatever you have, I see I have about 2 people in here right now. Please feel free to drop a question down. This is your time. This is your space to do that. Sorry for a moment here. Just sending out some stuff. Want people to know. All right. Always have to do that. Sometimes we're on a little bit later due to whatever technical issue or whatever is going on. And I definitely want people to know that we're on and that we're here. If nobody has any questions, then I'm going to move on forward. As many of you know, who have watched the program, I released a book. It's been about 2 months, 2.5 months now. A book on early world history, early world African history. The purpose of that book was to open up the door for us to know everyone, not just our culture, for us to understand the contributions of African Americans to the world. I shouldn't just say African Americans. That's not correct. Absolutely correct. African, from Black people to the world. We don't often dwelling in, and we have to call it that way because what has happened is many of us have never been taught our history. So we wrote that book um, um, for that purpose. Eric, I don't know really what you're saying here. Okay, you talked with Jesse Jones and evidence. I need to tell what you're Tina for understanding as well. Well, if you're talking about the presidential issues, I don't have an issue. I listen. Everyone has their right to vote wherever you want to vote. I only ask, as I've always said to everybody, I'm not a Democrat nor a Republican, so I don't have any skin in any one of those games. But what I do believe is that you just have to make sure that you are voting informed. Inform yourself for whatever which way you want to vote as best you can, and to follow. I'm a logical person, so I try to follow logic, right? And follow logic, follow wisdom, so that you don't find yourself voting out of passions or emotions or angers or situations like that. That's the only thing that I would state to that, because there has been a lot in our history of failures, and the failures a lot of times were brought on by people, presidents, right, uh, who had no stake in the game. And what I mean by that is they are not Black, Latino, Indigenous. Majority of our presidents, almost all of our presidents, uh, have been white men. They have no stake in the game for women's white rights per se. Doesn't affect them personally. They have no stake in the game per se for African American or African or minority rights or any of that, because honestly, it doesn't really affect them, nor did it probably affect their upbringing. We have had Republican and Democratic presidents on both sides who have had things in their past that are questionable. Bill Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar. And if you know anything about Cecil Rhodes, you know that what Rhodesia is, and the background of that. Um, we have presidents who thought that they were above the law, and that the law doesn't affect them. And it is because of this that we are in the predicament and the situation that we're in now. So there are a lot of things going on that needs to that need to be talked about and vetted. Hello, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. So, um, I don't have an issue with it one way or the other, one way or the other. But as I was saying, I wrote a book, and I am currently fully invested in writing the second book in the series. It is 102. The first one was 101. This will be 102 questions, um, Black history questions dealing with the Middle Ages, because we spend a lot of time talking about the medieval times and the Middle Ages of Europe. But Europe was chaos through most of the Middle Ages. Africa was prospering. And so this book needs to cover that. It will cover the spread of Islam and why Islam, more so than Christianity, spread through Africa. Why it was important for them to accept it and how it was modified to benefit Africans. Why there were issues with Christianity, not per se in the faith, but in the way that it was imposed and the way that it was regulated by European powers during the Middle Ages. And the pushback and the reason why Africans went more with Islam than they did with Christianity. And also the failures on both sides, because there was also an Islamic slave trade, as well as coming out of the Middle Ages into a European slave trade. And what were the differences with that? So I am venturing to get the second book done as quickly as possible, because I want to get all three. I have 3 books that I'm doing: 101, 102, 103. 103 takes us more into the modern age and talks about where we are now, how we got to where we are. But that's coming after this next book. But if you have not purchased the book, if it is on Amazon, it is you can also purchase it on Lulu Books. You can go and get those books on either one of those sites, and I will drop that stuff here within the chat for you. But here's the thing, what I wanted to talk about tonight. We need history, and I want to peel back a concept that I heard from someone that is not true. You have never heard me get on Erudition on this program and push hatred of any kind. You've never heard me push racism of any kind. The idea for this program is to further knowledge and understanding across the board. Does not matter your cultural association, who you are, where you come from. I want you to know the facts. And I don't like people who try to hide behind the wall of oppression to deny knowledge. We won't do that here. We want you to ask questions. I always open this program to questions. And I do it every episode because I wanted this program to be interactive. Eric led in a little bit about the situation that's going on with the way people are voting in this country. There's a lot of history. That's a lot of history to that. And sometimes the history is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. Well, we had our first Black president, Barack Obama. Racial malfeasance in the police department and state governments went on a rise again. In some areas hitting heights that not seen since the 1950s and 60s. That's a fact. We saw that people were intolerant. They had been hiding, being quiet, because they felt that the laws would not allow them to do some of the things they wanted to do. And then they started to test defenses. We watch young kids like Tamir Rice being shot down in the street for playing cops and robbers with a cap gun like any other young child would do. We saw a man choked out with a needle to his neck, George Floyd. We saw Ahmaud Arbery running down through a neighborhood, get gunned down. We saw a young man scream and say that people were chasing him, and we saw pictures of him running through the woods before his body was found in the woods. These are facts. This is the intolerance that we're seeing here. And if it hurts you or wounds you or angers you that we cover these facts, then I would tell you, if it's triggering you like that, you don't have to watch. But I will always put out the truth. Rather, it offends any of you to hear the history, because that is the purpose of this program. Sometimes, I have been trying to fish out what I want to do with this program at changing times. I went to go to 7 o'clock because I thought it would be better for people's time. Folks didn't show up. I went back to 5 right now because I wanted people to, again, but I don't want you getting upset. And Eric, that would be your choice. That would be your choice. If it's triggering you to hear some of this history, don't watch. That's not the point of this program, is to inform. But what you will never get from me is a racist diatribe. You will not hear me going into bigoted ideals. I don't do that. Contrive or compel seems to be the running thing with religion, which is apparently different from faith. I don't know. Well, as this book is written, you will start to understand why Islam was preferred and why it was such a big thing in Africa, and why it still is. Because of its ability to be modified and changed, and not the academic reality of Islam and what it presented in language for the African people and the Kiswahili language and things like that. But all of that will be covered in this new book, and it's important to me that we cover that, because I really want us to understand where we come from and who we are. So I want you to go out there and get that book if you haven't gotten it. All joking aside, I want you to go out there and do that. I guess I'm going to have to cover this idea that, because I didn't want to get into this tonight, but I'm going to. We live in a country that has not done us well. I see a lot of people on here Eric, as I've told you before, I have a major issue, and I probably am one of those people, and I think I showed you before, who has talked about Palestine for years before any of the things that are going on right now. I have talked about Palestine because I truly believe that I have a different perspective, right, of it. I have a different what's the word? Understanding, because I come from a historical background. And as I told you before, I don't support it. I don't support it. And so, but here's the thing. If you believe that voting for some of the people who are in office, let's talk about Palestine. I'm willing to have this conversation. As a matter of fact, I expected this conversation to some extent. I'm willing to have it. But I will tell you that there's history behind this that is disturbing on all sides. Even some of our people who are you may call independent candidates and people who America's sense of um, superiority has allowed it to be manipulated by countries all over the world. Ever since the beginning of Israel being recognized as a nation, there has been mistreatment of Palestinian people. That is a historical fact. But let me go further with that. If you are angry because of the genocide of Palestine, you should also be angry with the 200 plus years of genocide of people that look like you within your own country from every side of the political arena. Least we forget that we had Republican and Democratic presidents in the office who ignored civil rights. Least we forget the amount of murders and deaths that happened in the 1900s of Black, brown, and red people. If your political identifier is that, yes, I completely agree with you. It is horrible what is going on in Palestine. But why is it going on? Because we come from a country right now that cannot face the evil in which it is committed. Eric, you're old enough to remember Rodney King. You remember Rodney King? In 1991, he was beat by Sergeant Stacy Kuntz and a lot of his other friends, and they beat him with nightsticks, and they filmed it. It was filmed. It was seen. But this country, our legal system, our judicial system, right? Our executive part of our system, right? And the legislative, they all failed. They failed to stop this beating and this frenzy. And we have now started to see that it has come back. So I am moved by Palestine. And I'm one of the people who have said it for years. But I also have a knowledge to understand the history of it. That even in our own country, how do we expect people to change their thoughts for political reasons, not moral reasons, because that's what we're talking about, right? When they can't even change it for moral reasons. There are statutes on the book that protect Americans. They have been enforced. We talk about the Civil Rights Acts of the 1960s, but did you know that there were Civil Rights Acts of 1870, of 1866? That specifically said you could not attack minorities in our country under our law. Go look up Section 242. Section 242. Go search for it, which prohibits law enforcement officers to willfully deprive you of your rights. But it happens every day. And then we have to go to our courts and ask that the attorney generals and the Department of Justice get involved. We're talking about Palestine, a country that Israel, and then which we have no real legislative power over, but we are failing in our own country. When those cops got away with beating Rodney King in 1991, where everybody saw it, the first time we could pick up a camera and see what was the violations that were being done against Blacks that we've talked about for two or 4 decades. You know what the President of the United States, President George Bush Sr. said? He said blacks felt betrayed. He didn't say Americans felt betrayed. Blacks. So if we're talking about presidential failures, presidential feasibility, folks being old, well, we can go through a whole line of presidents who should not have been in there, who have been sick. We could talk about Woodrow Wilson actually having a stroke and not really even serving the last part of his presidency. The most racist president we ever had. We could talk about President Warren G. Harding, the drunk, who was the first one to say he would pass an anti-lynching law and say he would stand up for it and then go back on it in the 1920s, at the beginning in the forming of the NAACP, when black men were being killed by the thousands in this country. They were being burned, shot, and mutilated. That's a presidential failure. But he needed the black vote, because at the time, black people were allowed to vote. I find it hard for us to associate what is going on in the world when we can't even fix what's going on here. So if black men want to go out, 30% of black men want to go out and vote for a guy who told you don't treat him nice, who told you that Andrew Jackson was his hero, the man who blew up Negro Fort, who illegally went into Florida and killed men, women, and children, who separated indigenous people from their homeland, who violated the Treaty of the Cherokee, which was put in by Thomas Jefferson, who told the Cherokee, if you have slaves and you dress like white men and you live civilized, you will be treated like civilized people. So they enslaved our ancestors. We can talk about genocides all over the world. But how can Americans stand for it if you don't know your history? This is why we have this program. The laws that were passed that said that our federal government could not get involved in racial crimes. Racial crimes. Because it wasn't the purview of the federal government. If we want to do something different, right, we got to demand something different. We got to demand something different at all levels. And unfortunately, Eric, it's not going to be overnight. I've told you this once before in private. It's not going to be overnight. I feel your rage, man. I feel your rage. I have a book in here right now of Ida B. Wells listing, for the record, how many people that are related to us and how they were killed, murdered, mutilated with no law to protect them. Laws on the books, but no desire by presidents, be it they're being old, be it them being silly, be it them being drunks, be it being whatever it may be. So though I cry, and I am one of those people who have talked about, injustice all over. When the war in Ukraine started and they were telling Africans, no, you stay here and fight for us. African students that nobody talks about anymore. the ignorance or the desire to ignore the racial issues that still go on in Europe. But here's the thing. Before that ever reaches us, we got our problems here. We got our problems here. We have gone back to a point right now where governors, mayors, senators, local and state politicians are encouraging racial terrorism and encouraging Americans to ignore state laws, statutes. Grab your gun and go out there and do what you got to do. And we act like it's only in the South because that's the popular view. That's always been a popular view of America. But civil rights laws are being violated all over the country. And now that we're going to a point where we're stripping these laws through our courts, through our Supreme Court, laws in which men like Martin Luther King Jr., Fred Shuttlesworth, people gave their bodies and their lives for, within our own mental remembrance. These people lived and they were around people who are still alive today who could tell you about them. This ain't ancient history. In the law, it is illegal to segregate. It is illegal to discriminate. It is illegal to terrorize people due to their race, creed, religion, or whatever. However, as you're finding with the situation when you're talking about overseas, these so-called democracies can have those laws on the books. But it is completely different. It is completely different to prosecute. To prosecute. It's not just one person. Since we got into this today. And I'm sorry that you're angry. But it's not just one person today. We can't blame all this on the Joe Biden. We can't blame all this on the Donald Trump. Or whatever person you want to lay it at their feet with. This is the history of malfeasance. At least we forget that Kennedy launched an investigation on Dr. King while at the same time telling Black people that he loved them. That Lyndon Johnson, who signed those civil rights acts, still let COINTELPRO happen and let J. Edgar Hoover do exactly what he was doing to undermine the civil rights movement. And even when they make efforts, right? Because we're looking at presidents, right? We're saying they're old. Woodrow Wilson came in and stripped the government, segregated the military, watched as lynching and murders happened in the country, waged wars, private wars around the globe. You're not taught that in your history classes. And we can be angry. But what I have said, and I'm going to say here tonight, other cultures in this country grow their politicians. If a politician, say, and I'm going to use him as an example, Mitch McConnell dies tomorrow, there's somebody to replace Mitch McConnell. Already in the pipeline. Already there. We don't grow our politicians. We grow Nothing right now. We grow celebrities. We put money in the pockets of Oprah Winfrey and The Rock and Beyonce and everybody else. We spend our entire mortgages to go to their concerts, and we sacrifice our money to go to their movies and watch their shows and buy their products. But you're not investing in the very thing that could help you to survive in this country. And then when we get a politician that speaks up, that's African American, everybody goes, oh, they're a superstar. They're a superstar for what? For doing what every politician should do? Call out malfeasance? Call out evil? We can name a murder in every decade since the Civil Rights Movement. You can name one that was horrific, that has still nothing been done, and laws don't get changed. Malcolm X tried to tell us that rather they be wolves or foxes, they are still here to devour you. And I said this at the beginning of this, Eric. I said this at the beginning, you all. This reality is that they don't have any stake in the game. And when we had an African American president in the White House, we let them basically castrate him. When he got up there in tears thinking about Tamir Rice, people said, why is a president crying? And we co-signed it. When Henry Louis Gates couldn't get in his house and a police officer arrested him and harassed this well-respected historian, and Barack Obama dared in the early days of his presidency say something about it, they made a big deal of it. And we allowed it. We didn't speak up. There was no congressional committees. There was nobody standing up saying, no, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. It starts with individuals. It starts with shows like this. It starts with you out there. I don't care if it's going and running for your HOA because you realize that your HOA may be redlining and not letting people in the community. But we are not growing this activism. We're not growing the idea of movement. The John Lewises are gone. And Eric, I feel your pain because I have to look at this from a historical perspective every day. Not by choice. It's just the way that my mind works. I look back and I see we're talking about today. I look back and I see the George Washingtons, Thomas Jefferson, the Hardings, the Coolidges, the Roosevelts, the Hoovers, the Trumans, the Reagans, the Bush, the Nixons, the Kennedys, who did nothing. We're talking about a man, his ability to be healthy enough to be president, right? That's what everybody's talking about. And they forget that FDR ran four times. 4 times. And to be honest with you, from the very first time, he was an ill man. And I see your comment that they're using our money. Eric, they used our money and our backs and our wealth, and they still do, to give tax breaks, to give incentives to move whites. This is FDR, the beautiful, trumped out, loved, highly elevated FDR of the Democratic Party. Him and mayors like Theorello LaGuardia gave incentives for people, white people, to move out of the cities into the suburbs where they paid most of their mortgages and their cars off so that they could acquire wealth, so that they could open up businesses. And those very same businesses and wealthy people still have money today, and they have generational wealth that they will deny to you. And it's built off your back, off your ancestors' back. We're not living in anything new, my brother. And it is painful for me to tell you that. But the political manipulation, the ideological cohesion, because that happens where congressional committees, people within the government, regardless of party, side with each other to keep the status quo. FDR, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, they all had the political power and the votes and the muscle to change what was going on in America that is now affecting the world. They didn't do it because they had no skin in the game. They had no reason to do it. Dr. King said he had more pushback going against the Vietnam War than he ever had for civil rights. And all he was saying was, why are we going to fight this war and using black bodies that you told us that you cared about? They have whole institutions. Yeah, I agree, Tony. That's what killed them. That's what killed them. No, it's a huge part of what killed him. What got him shot. We know that from looking at the COINTELPRO papers, and we can see how they ramped up legislation, and our federal government put a lot of power into the FBI. Put a lot of power. They could do a lot of different things. They can investigate robberies, kidnappings, weapons, political unrest. And every time they do something that is deemed beneficial, going out and getting the savage, as they say, there is no debate. Nobody challenges it in court. They just go and do what they're going to go do. Eric, I've never told you to vote for anybody. And I think I started this show by telling you that is your choice. Be informed. Be informed. Because your choices right now are selected for you. You even have the right to not vote. I am a huge advocate of your freedom to do what you want to do. But be informed. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised in a country where you have had Plessy versus Ferguson, where you've had Dred Scott, where you've had a constitution that valued a black man's life at 3/5. I'm not surprised with anything. And it may break your heart to know that young Palestinian children are dying. But let me tell you something, brother. Kids are dying right over here. The genocide is everywhere because the value of life is minimized. You remember, I think I said on the show at one point about a year or so ago, talking about the book Huckleberry Finn and how Mark Twain tried to point out, I love Mark Twain because he was honest. But there's a part in Huckleberry Finn where Huck goes up and he says that there was a fire or something happened on um, one of the ferry ships on the river. And the woman who was written to be this caring person that wanted to be the mother of Huck, Aunt Sally, right? And all these people. She asked Huck, she said, oh my God, was anybody hurt? Anybody die? And this is the early part of the book. And Huck says, no, nobody was killed, just an N-word. And then there's a line that Twain put in there. He scratched it out and he put it back in there where Aunt Sally, this caring person says, or supposedly caring person says, well, it's lucky, because sometimes people do get hurt. She did not see blacks as human. Did it mean that she would like to see them die? Probably not. But at the same time, there was this idea that was clear that they're different from us. So I get your anger. I get your frustration. I get all of that. But I've never told you, and you can never claim that I've told you, who to vote for. I'm not here to tell you to vote for Trump, Biden, or anybody. I'm here tonight, as I am on every Thursday, to give you facts. And as I said earlier, I don't want it to be contrived that people think that, or they try to play me and say, "Oh well, Eddie, you're pushing racism." Nope, I'm telling you the facts. Telling you the facts. We have always had an intransigent White House. We've always had leadership there that does not really want to change the status quo. And that's going to have an effect around the world. I will tell you from living in a Muslim country for 3 years. For 3 years. Right? I saw that it was affecting the world then. They know it. And so it is upsetting, and it should be. It was a reason why Malcolm X, before he died, he traveled over to the Middle East, and he went back and started meeting with people at the UN. This is the reason why Malcolm was killed, and said that we should join together as nations of color, because he realized something that you're not taught really in school, that there was a lot more people of color throughout the world who, if united, could stand up against the rhetoric and the BS and the same old. And what happened? Malcolm was killed. We talk about Malcolm and Dr. King, but there were many activists who were killed because they simply wanted to stop the revulsion and the hatred and the anger and the bigotry and all of these things that were going on all over the world. Different ways, same focus. It is a reason why it takes so long for them to outlaw lynching. I remember telling someone years ago, it didn't matter whether it was Democrat or Republican. Somebody always stood up to say, no, let's let that lynching keep going. I wasn't going to get into that tonight. But I knew that one of you probably would ask this question. I can only tell you what I believe. I gave you the facts. What I believe is that you need to vote your conscience. What you believe is going to be better for you, your family, those you care about. And unfortunately, in America, we are always given a choice. And as I said earlier, it's because we don't grow our politicians in the way other cultures do. You can argue with me on that. You will lose that argument. We do not grow our politicians. And I don't know if it is a choice that was made, if it's a block in both these major parties or whatever it is, but we don't grow them. And the only way many of them even get any kind of exposure is they have to go through some grassroots political party, which we know by giving America's political system and money and power, they're not going to get elected. And the moment we start to understand that at the lower levels, we need to start growing our political. People choose politicians. I watched a graduation this year where a young girl, her father is a politician. She was valedictorian of her school. She was just loved by the teachers and by the community. Why do you think that is? Because that's his replacement. It starts early. It starts in K-12. But we don't do that. We've been advised to do it. W.B. Du Bois told us to do it. Carter G. Woodson told us to do it. Dr. King advised us to do it. Malcolm advised us to do it. The list goes on and on and on. But every 4 years, we roll around like it's a surprise. Oh, God, who do we have? Oh, what they gave us. When you're given something, it's like going to a meal at someone's house that you had no part in. You had no part in the preparation or whatever. You're just sitting at the table. And many of us argue, I want a seat at the table. No, I want to know what's at that table. I want to know what we're making. Maybe it's not something that I want to eat. Maybe it's not something I want to imbibe. But we don't think that way. We don't think that way. And I agree with you, Tony. They let innocent men stay in jail knowing. But it doesn't matter because we hide things and we don't share history and we don't. This is the reason why when I do this program on Thursdays, I stress to people, share it, grow, do whatever. The reason why I'm now spending my time writing books, because I'm tired of being given something by people who are owned by something. They told y'all to focus on 1619. They told y'all to only see yourself as a slave or the children of a slave. You're just being given something. You know, and as my wife said on here earlier, someone has always want someone else to tell them what to do. No, you don't need nobody to tell you what to do. God gave you a free mind to make a decision, good or bad. Stop letting yourself be given something. Learn your history. Go read about how James Weldon Johnson had to go and argue with President Harding to get the Dyer bill passed. And then that man died. And he had to go to Quiet Cow, good old Coolidge, who refused while blacks were being killed and murdered. And look all the way into the Woodrow Wilsons and all of these different people. Look at what we have gone through. And you won't be surprised on what is going on in Palestine and throughout the world. In Africa, where they tell us that that's the next war. There's a reason why I'm writing these books. As I get ready to close the program, I'm at my hour. Because we need to know our history. We need to understand that when Europe was in its infancy, when Europe was foolishly following, people not washing themselves, people couldn't read. This is not made up. When all of that was going on, I want you to know that the people in Africa, that wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. Africa had kingdoms. Africa expanded into Europe. We can talk about all of these sub-Saharan African kingdoms. The Umayyad Caliphate, the Carthaginian Empire, the Fatimid Caliphate, Songhai Empire, Mali, Zimbabwe, Kingdom of Congo, Kingdom of Aksum, which I wrote about in my last book, Christian Ethiopia. It goes on and on and on. But if you don't know this and don't realize that for basically 1,000 years, Europe, those ones who we listen to, even today, they were going crazy. They were murdering each other. The Roman Empire fell and they had lost their minds. So I'm here every Thursday. I'm here every Thursday. Here to talk to you about this history. Because see, here's the thing, Eric. When you get into that Persian Achaemenid Empire, when you get into what happened in the past, and understand how Islam spread through Africa, you will understand why this European Jewish mentality is still against them. And it doesn't have anything really necessarily to do with America. We just finance it, as well as others. And it's unfortunate, and it's evil, but it is historical. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you got something from this show tonight. I went down a path I didn't really want to, but I try to answer every question you all give me. I try to make sure I address everything that you say. I respect your show and all the knowledge when I see people who look like me. I get it, my brother. I get it. I don't want you to think that I'm blowing it off. I get it. And I understand it, and I've spoken about it for years. And I've talked about it on this program. It's just, it's something that we can't solve it. We cannot solve it if we can't even solve the problems that we're facing. Because it's all connected. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Hey, I see you had 6 of you all in here. I saw Tony. Thank you, Tony, for joining us. Eric, I saw you. Thank you for joining us, man, and giving those responses. I hope that you got something, and I hope that you understand that, I'm with you, man. It is a horrendous thing, and we should not be supporting it. And that has been said. It has been said for decades. But again, It is manipulation of our system that seems to continue because we're not putting people in there to stop it or block it. There's no stake in the game. Please share this program. I have my book is coming out. The printed copy of the book should be coming out very soon. I believe within the week. I'm supposed to get a copy coming in here, I think tomorrow, that I will validate. And then the book will be on sale. It will start on sale. The hard copy printed book will be on sale. Thank you, little brother. Will be on sale on Lulu first, and then it will make its way to Amazon and other places, but it will start on Lulu first. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. The print book is over 288 pages. 288 pages. It is a book. In order for me to sell this book, the print, and I'm still taking a loss a little bit, we priced the print book at $45. Here's the thing. You also have the option to get the ebook, which is interactive. You can click it, and I've showed you on the program before, and it will ask you the question. You can click it, and it will interact with you. That book is $18. There is a difference. But if you are one of those, I'm like that. I need a hardcover book. Go out there and get that book. Most history books will cost you upwards of $80 to $100 something. To price this book at $45 is still a benefit. Please, if you were waiting for the print book, go when it gets released, go out there and get it. Send a review. Let me know what you got from it. Share it with your young folks. Learn from it. 101 questions that I'm sure of subjects you did not know about. And we're going to top that off with this next book that I'm working on right now with 102 questions talking about the medieval and Middle Ages. We are going to make sure you learn something when you get these books. And I hope that you do. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all again for those who joined us in the live tonight. Even if you were just in the background watching, that's fine. Thank you. Hey, send your questions to the Erudition Network. Let us know if you have anything that you'd like to hear about on the show, a subject you'd like to have covered. Maybe you want one of us to come on your program. Let us know. We're here. We are available, and we can make that happen. Knowledge and understanding. We're growing knowledge and understanding across the board. All right. I'm going to get out. Oh, sorry. I did not do that because my son, yeah, pray for my son. He's usually in the background, but he took a little ill. He's been working a lot. So pray for Teddy. He's always in the background helping with Tina's show and the boys and even with my show. If you want to help out with the Erudition Network, we have a Cash App, $ the Erudition Network. Anything, everything that you do goes to help us with this program, helps us to create materials, the books that you see that we're writing, the cameras that I use for this program, this mic that I'm using, all the lights, everything goes to our program. And so whatever you do benefits us. The Cash App is $ the Erudition Network. You will see the Erudition Network symbol, and you will know you are in the right place. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you again for joining us. I've talked to a point of nauseum. But I really, really want you all. Oh, thank you, Tony. Look, bring your passion to this program. Let's talk about it. Because that's the only way we're going to learn. Beyond all the TikTok, social foolery, come here and we're going to make sure you learn something. Matter of fact, I want you guys to get a book. Eric, I want you to get a book because you talked about it tonight. What's the name of that book? See, I say I want you to get a book and I couldn't remember the name. It's from, I've suggested this book before. What's that? Betrayal. That's actually, when I think about this book, I only think about the name, The History of Presidential Failures, written by Earl Afari Hutchinson. You may be able to get it on Amazon. I know it was on Amazon a couple of years ago. get that book, Betrayal: A History of Presidential Failure, by Earl Afari Hutchinson. Good book. Go in and it will talk to you about some of the things I talked about tonight. Um, and it will definitely touch on why we are where we are. And the failures not only in this country, but around the world, right? And why it has happened. Great book. Get that. I always got a book for you. Yeah, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but yeah, go out there and get that book, Betrayal, or it's either Betrayal or Betrayed. But I always remember it as a history of presidential failure, right? So go do that, and I'm sure you'll get something from that. Let me know. Let me know what you think of the book, and we could discuss that too on here. All right, all right. Going 10 minutes over. Let me get out of here. All right, you all. God willing, we will see you all again next week, and see Tina on Monday. The boys may be on Wednesday, and definitely I will hopefully see you on next Thursday. All right, I'm out. Y'all be blessed. Thank you.